The next morning we drove away from Kochi towards the Western Ghats mountains, and along the way we went past some absolutely spectacular mansions, some of them decidedly weird, but interspersed with beautiful open countryside. But really you realise that houses that rich people have here are vastly larger than the same rich people in our country, and they must think our houses are tiny by comparison. There's apparently an awful lot of wealth in Kerala. It's the richest part of India, and people all want to work here because the wages are higher. There's obviously a great deal of poverty as well. Anyway, as it got higher and higher, we started to go across bridges and then very windy, twisty, hairpin roads. And this was the first stop to see a spectacular waterfall, lots of Indian tourists, and of course lots of stalls getting their wares, which was just about as interesting as seeing a waterfall. And lots of monkeys who are trying to jump on the buses. There were also some giant squirrels. Again, we got back on the bus and saw another waterfall, and then carried on looking at some of the spectacular scenery, which I couldn't really film because I was on the wrong side of the bus, unfortunately. But there were lots of stalls for people to do zip wires and bungee jumping, elephant safaris, jeep safaris. So an awful lot of Indians come here for recreation. Then we got to the tea area, and the landscape is just weird. It looks like something from Lord of the Rings, with these funny little tree bushes everywhere covering the hillside. Quite beautiful. So we got to the hotel and we were welcomed with a garland, and the hotel was quite swish. Didn't have air conditioning, but it really wasn't very hot at all, so I didn't really miss it. A huge room. Wish I had a bedroom as big as this at home, with a spectacular view over Munnar, which is a very desirable place for Indians to go on holiday. But when you go down to the centre, it's just wonderfully chaotic, full of noise, action, bazaars, selling everything you can imagine, horns tooting, tuk-tuks everywhere. Next morning we first of all visited a school for children with learning disabilities, which was quite interesting. Didn't really think appropriate to film that. And then we got further into the tea plantation area. Very beautiful. Then this was another place where they teach children with learning disabilities how to do batik and things of that nature, and they generally graduate from the school to this, and it was intriguing to see just how they make all the batik patterns, but unfortunately I didn't film that bit. It's quite clever how they do it. This is them boiling things in indigo, and this is an example of how they make batik with the spots on it with wax. And that's the view. As you can see, lots of gardens where they teach people how to grow crops. And then back into the town itself, and we walked through the market, and I bought myself a sari for only £7.85, which was unbelievable. One of the people in the spa helped me wear it for the evening, and everyone thought it was quite something. Go out wearing an Indian sari and lots of people looking at you because you were a Westerner wearing a sari. It was just lovely walking down here. All the people were all friendly and everyone seemed happy and all things going on. So this is where I got the sari in the market, but the food was all laid out and everyone's really chatty and explaining everything to you. The food definitely looks more healthy and interesting than you get in Sainsbury's. This is dried fish. It looks absolutely revolting by comparison. Then, again, back over the bridge to the hotel. Beautiful sunset. The next morning was a trek through the tree plantations, and we were warned about leeches. And we did actually see a few leeches stuck up. Someone had one on the leg and a little thing wriggling along. Really horrible. But anyway, that's what we were walking through. Absolutely idyllic. Not hot at all. Didn't see anyone actually picking tea. We had to scrabble up the tracks in between the trees. And they earn about £4 a day from picking about 16 kilos of tea in all weathers, rain or shine. Mainly women do the picking and men are in the factory, and they get £6 a day. So that was the view from the top.
Not really sure it's actually got anything
Really
in
lovely.
it.
Then we walked back down the hill. And then the next thing was to go to a tea museum, which told you all about tea. There was an interesting film about how the tea business started off, and then we were taken around the factory showing how they dry the tea first of all in these huge hot air blowers. This man tried to explain it to us, and I didn't understand the word he was saying. Like the 3 different types of tea that you get from the top bud and the other 2 leaves.
Tea, green tea, orthodox black tea, CDC black tea, same leaf.
A vast array of machines to dry it and then cut it and then roast it. And the Indians actually like the finest cut dust, and it has to be fermented, which is what gives it its flavour. All looks a bit Heath Robinson. Then it goes this conveyor belt and into a large drying machine. All the machinery looks like something from the 1920s. Probably is. And it gets finally emerges into these bags, and the next stage and there you are, you can buy your tea. And this particular tea plantation is owned by the workers. It gets awards. And we all had a cup of tea afterwards. Tea is the answer to most problems. The next thing was tea tasting session. So we went back into the town to a specialist tea tasting place. It just put a smile on your face walking through this area. This is explaining the different types of tea, from the light tea to the dark tea. It's very precise, exactly how much you put in, and exactly how hot the water has to be, and how long you let it stew for.
I will be adding more so that you can taste it. Otherwise, it will be very soft, very red. So you can see the moment it gets in contact with water, the brewing starts.
So the white tea you said is longer too, right?
Yeah, it will take slightly
A
more.
little bit, like 3 to 4 minutes instead of 2 to 3.
Yeah, specifically.
Then we tasted the tea from the white tea to the dark tea, and the black tea at the end, which was the dust, was really strong and you couldn't really taste it or drink it without sugar and milk. But the stuff at the very beginning, which was quite light, was quite drinkable on its own. So that was a whole day of tea.
From Lockhart plantation.